Pamela Marie Hupp, née Newman, born October 10, 1958, is an American woman who in 2016 murdered Louis Gumpenberger, a crime for which she is serving a life sentence. Gumpenberger, who suffered from severe mental and physical impairments, was shot to death in Hupp's home in O'Fallon, Missouri. Hupp's claim that she had shot Gumpenberger in self-defense after he pursued her into her home wielding a knife was not accepted by law enforcement, and she ultimately entered an Alford guilty plea before charges of first-degree murder and armed criminal action could go to trial. Testimony from Hupp played a key role in the 2013 conviction of Russ Faria for the murder of his wife, Betsy Faria, who was stabbed to death in her home in Troy, Missouri in 2011. Russ Faria was exonerated in a second trial in 2015 after his defense attorney was permitted to introduce evidence that had previously been withheld from trial, some of which implicated Hupp as having killed Betsy Faria. Law enforcement have theorized that Hupp tricked Gumpenberger into entering her home and then murdered him in a failed attempt to frame Russ Faria. In July 2021, Hupp was charged with the first-degree murder of Betsy Faria. Hupp has also been investigated in connection with the death of her mother, Shirley Newman, who died in 2013 from injuries sustained in a fall from the balcony of her third-floor apartment in Fenton, Missouri. A tip-off to police accused Hupp of killing Newman for financial gain. Newman's death was initially ruled an accident, but in November 2017 the chief medical examiner for St. Louis County changed the cause of death to undetermined, referencing the events in O'Fallon and Troy. An investigation into Newman's death by the St. Louis County Police Department was inconclusive. The killings of Betsy Faria and Louis Gumpenberger have been the subject of significant media coverage, including extensive reporting from the local Fox affiliate station KTVI in St. Louis and 5 Dateline NBC episodes airing from 2014 to 2019, as well as the inaugural Dateline NBC True Crime podcast. A scripted television series featuring actress Renee Zellweger as Hupp, The Thing About Pam, premieres Tuesday, March 8, 2022 on NBC at 10 p.m. Early life. Born on October 10, 1958, Newman grew up in Dellwood, Missouri, a St. Louis suburb, where she attended Riverview Gardens High School. Hupp held several jobs in the life insurance industry. On 2 occasions, she was fired for forging signatures. In 2001, she and her husband settled in O'Fallon, where she worked as an administrator for State Farm and flipped houses on the side. By 2010, Hupp had stopped working and was claiming disability benefits for back, leg, and neck pain. In 2011, Hupp and Betsy Faria, a friend terminally ill with cancer, reportedly collected money for a family also impacted by cancer. Fox 2 News found several years later that the family did not know about the collection. Information was presented to Lincoln County authorities 2014 but was not investigated further. There was no evidence to suggest Faria knew the fundraiser was questionable, with her friends recalling that she said she was excited to be helping a struggling family, even though she herself was dying. One of them, Kathleen Meyer, said, "This was going to be a legacy for her, to leave something like this behind in her memory." Death of Betsy Faria. Elizabeth, Betsy K. Meyer Faria was a co-worker of Hupp at State Farm. She lived at 130 Sumac Drive in Troy, Missouri, with her husband, Russ Scott Faria, and 2 daughters from a previous relationship. In 2010, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. In October 2011, she learned the cancer had metastasized to her liver and was terminal. On December 22, days before her death and unbeknownst to her family, Faria changed the sole beneficiary of her $150,000, equivalent to $173,000 in 2020, State Farm life insurance policy from her husband to Hupp, who originally said that Faria had asked her to give the money to her daughters when they were older. Later she said Faria had wanted her to keep the money for herself. Betsy Faria's daughters launched a legal challenge against Hupp and her husband to attempt to claim the life insurance policy in 2014, which was dismissed in 2016. Russ launched his own legal challenge against State Farm in 2016. Hupp admitted that she had lied about what she intended to do with the life insurance proceeds. Prosecutors later speculated that her husband had been angered by her actions, giving him a motive to kill her. Russ remained the beneficiary on a separate $100,000, equivalent to $115,000 in 2020 policy. 5 days later, on December 27, 2011, Faria underwent chemotherapy at the Alvin J. Siteman Cancer Center and then visited her mother's house, after which she was driven home by Hupp, the last confirmed person to have seen her alive. Faria had originally been scheduled to be driven home by a family friend until Hupp drove to her mother's house and insisted on driving her home. Hupp claimed that she had dropped Faria off at approximately 7 p.m. At approximately 7:21 p.m., a call to Faria from one of her daughters went unanswered. Russ Faria spent the evening at his friend Michael Corbin's home watching films until 9 p.m., then drove to an Arby's in Lake St. Louis before returning home. At 9:40 p.m., Russ called 911 saying that he had returned to his home to find his wife had killed herself. Betsy had been stabbed over 55 times with her wrists cut to the bone and a serrated kitchen knife left lodged in her neck. A second knife was found under a pillow on the couch she was lying on. First responders arrived within 10 minutes and concluded that Betsy Faria had been dead for at least an hour and likely longer. Conviction of Russ Faria. Russ was arrested the day after his wife's death. His initial assertion that Betsy had killed herself was considered ludicrous by first responders who saw her body. A police search of the house unearthed a blood-stained pair of slippers in his closet. Russ's volatile emotional state was regarded as suspicious by police, and he ostensibly failed a polygraph test. When interviewed by police, Hupp claimed that Russ Faria had a violent temper, that he was a heavy drinker, that he had threatened Betsy, who had been considering leaving him. At Hupp's behest, police searched Betsy's laptop and found a document in which she purportedly expressed fears that her husband would kill her. On January 4, 2012, the day after Betsy's funeral, Russ was charged with first-degree murder and armed criminal action. Unable to make $250,000 bail, equivalent to $282,000 in 2020, he was held in the county jail until his trial began on November 18, 2013. During Russ Faria's trial, his defense attorney, Joel Schwartz, argued that the testimonies of the four friends he had visited and evidence of him making purchases from different stores over the course of the evening demonstrated that the timeline did not allow for him to commit the murder. There were no traces of blood on his body or clothes. Prosecuting attorney, Leah Aski, countered that Russ Faria's friends were providing a false alibi and had colluded with him. The trial judge, Chris Menemeyer, refused to allow Schwartz to present evidence implicating Hupp as an alternative suspect, including cell phone records showing she had been in the vicinity of the Faria house for up to 30 minutes after the time she claimed to have dropped her off, or that Betsy had made Hupp the sole beneficiary of the life insurance policy shortly before her death. In a secret hearing during the trial, Hupp had alleged that she had put $100,000 of the insurance money in a trust for Faria's daughters. In a July 2014 civil deposition, she admitted she had not done so. On November 21, 2013, Russ Faria was convicted on both counts. A month later, he was sentenced to life plus 30 years imprisonment without possibility of parole and sent to the Jefferson City Correctional Center. Although a central premise of the prosecution's case was that his four friends had been complicit in the murder, no charges were ever brought against them. They were not aware they had been implicated by Aski in her closing arguments until the media informed them. The sentence was welcomed by Betsy Faria's family. In an interview given following the sentencing, her sister, Julie Swanee, made claims unheard during the trial that Russ Faria had been angered by the removal of his name from a separate insurance policy and that he had on one occasion held a pillow on Faria's face and said, "This is what it feels like to die." In response to the claims, Schwartz noted that the pillow story had originally been told by Hupp. Faria's originally misled daughters would issue an apology to Russ Faria in July 2021. Retrial and acquittal of Russ Faria. An initial motion for a new trial was rejected by Judge Chris Menemeyer in December 2013. In January 2014, Fox 2 KTVI partnered with the St. Louis Post-Dispatch to review the case. The next month, the newspaper reported that Hupp had kept the $150,000 rather than put it into a trust for Faria's daughters. She had also contradicted herself during police interviews, such as initially claiming she had not entered the Faria house after driving her home but later revising this account twice. The 911 operator who had taken Russ Faria's call believed he had been genuinely hysterical. The article alleged that Aski, the prosecutor, had been in a relationship with Mike Lang, the then captain of investigations for the sheriff's office and one of the investigating officers in the Betsy Faria murder case, as well as a prosecution witness. Two members of the jury in Russ Faria's trial told the media that this information had been withheld. Schwartz appealed the conviction. In February 2015, the Missouri